Part 7. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 61. The two of them returned to the original route one after another. They originally wanted to find some topics to talk about, but Lily, who was exhausted physically and mentally by Yayu's few answers, was too lazy to speak for a while. Lily has seen quite a few adventurers, but this is the first time she has seen someone as unique as Yayu. The adventurers the girl meets are not the kind of guys who like to brag about their power, but are actually weak and have no talent. Or he is a guy who looks serious on the surface and talks about giving himself a generous reward, but turns his back on the person when the final settlement is made. Occasionally, I encounter adventurers who may not do such a thing and have a very bad attitude towards me. After all, in their eyes, he was just a dirty supporter and could not be compared with noble adventurers like them. Do truly good adventurers exist? Are all adventurers really bad people? Sometimes Lily couldn't help but ask herself this, but she soon laughed it off. How is it possible? How can such an adventurer, who is gentle to others as if he were a fool, exist? Adventurers are a group of arrogant guys. In their hearts, talking to a supporter like themselves is already a gift to them, right? While Lily was thinking in a daze, she and Yayu had already reached the 7th floor of the maze. At this moment, a strange sound rang out, startling Lily, who was falling behind. Although he was just a supporter, he had been in the dungeon for a long time, and Lily instantly recognized the monster that made the sound. Killer ants. The moment she exclaimed, Lily quickly moved closer to Yayu. Yayu, who had just walked around a corner, was also slightly startled. He, actually encountered a monster. Because it was so unexpected that Yayu didn't react for a long time. Master Yayu, the monster has appeared. That's great. It seems like we won't be leaving empty-handed today. Lily said this, and although her tone sounded happy, the girl's actual mood didn't seem to be very good. Ah, a monster actually appeared. Damn it, I didn't get any dividends at all in the first 3 days. It seems to be a relationship between distance. Looking at Lily running towards him, Yayu quickly discovered the reason for the appearance of the monster. It seemed that Lily had not kept up with him just now. The distance between the two people had widened a lot, and then, a monster was born from the wall. As expected, are you afraid of yourself? At the moment when he was thinking like this, Lily had already hid behind him. Quickly destroy it, Master Yayu. I have to say that the shape of this large insect monster looks really eye-catching, and Lily's tone seemed a little trembling. Looking at the threatening monster with the unique mouthparts of a large insect, Yayu didn't have any thoughts. If I have to say it, a little excited. Finally, a month later, I finally encountered a monster in the dungeon. Lily stood behind Yayu. The girl wanted to take a good look at how this so-called mage fought. However, the girl was slightly disappointed that Yayu had no intention of using the long sword behind her. She didn't even see clearly what happened. The killer ant that crawled over turned into a crystal ice sculpture. Why? She shivered due to the instantaneous cooling, and then looked stupidly at the statue frozen on the wall. With a snap, the statue turned into powder and scattered in the passage. Of course, nothing was left. So, what exactly happened? After being stunned for a long time, Lily said so stupidly, while Yayu stood there with a helpless expression on his face. I accidentally got too excited, and it froze to pieces along with the magic crystal. But it doesn't matter anymore. It's just a magic crystal from an ordinary monster. At least now I know how to encounter monsters. If I encounter them again in the future, I can try to deal with them without using magic. Thinking like this, Yayu looked at Lily, who was standing behind him. The strange look in his eyes made the girl tremble uncontrollably. Ugh, I always feel like this guy is thinking about something terrible. Let's go. After all, Yayu still didn't say, You go and use it as bait to lure the monster out because he felt that if he said it, the little girl would be scared away by him, right? Well, today is only the first day, so don't worry, it would be bad if you scare this girl away. This time, yeah, you kept a very close distance to Lily. The two of them never encountered a monster along the way, and they just came to the ground. Obviously Lily also discovered something strange. The girl couldn't help but feel that what Yayu said at the beginning was not without purpose. The monsters in the dungeon are afraid of something, so, they dare not come out. The image of the killer ant crawling over, turning into an ice sculpture, and then into powder appeared inexplicably in her mind, and the girl shivered involuntarily. I'm not a swordsman, I'm a mage. Mage. Can a LV1 mage do this? What a joke, what kind of monster is this man? While the girl was thinking in a daze, Yayu's voice sounded in her ears. Then, I will continue to trouble you tomorrow, Lily. Ah, I know. Looking at Yayu's emotionless face, Lily's mouth twitched. For a moment, the girl had the idea of discussing with this guy whether she could stop coming in the future, even if she paid you. But when the words came to her mouth, they were quietly swallowed. The girl did not have the courage to say such words directly. Well, go back and rest early. Tomorrow may be a little hard on you. Just like he did with Hestia, Yayu's palm subconsciously fell on Lily's head and rubbed it gently, then he turned and left. Hey, it might be a little harder. For some reason, Lily couldn't help but tremble, and many not so good thoughts came to her mind. Ah, why is it so hard? You are so powerful that you don't need me to take action at all. Is it possible that you can still let me be used as bait? Smiling so casually, Lily also left the square immediately. The girl had no idea that her words had set up a big flag for herself. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 62. Well, you found supporters so quickly. Well, how should I put it? Walking into the familiar meeting room dedicated to the two of them, Yayu briefly explained what happened today to Aina. Yayu finally encountered a monster, which made Aina involuntarily breathe a sigh of relief. It felt like a child had finally grown up. However, Yayu's casual attitude towards supporters made Aina helpless for a while. Supporters are very important to adventurers. How can you be so careless? A good supporter can help an adventurer a lot, but a poor supporter can also kill an adventurer. Aina said so seriously. Yayu nodded loudly. Okay, stop nodding, I have a headache from looking at you. She said this with some dumbfounding, and then Aina continued to ask. You have been getting along for a while, so what do you think of the child named Lily Luca? Well, he is a good boy, neither noisy nor fussy, and he clearly understands his position as a supporter. But he just feels a little too inferior, and he is also very wary, as if he doesn't trust anyone. Look. Although they only got along briefly and didn't even exchange a few words, Yayu understood Lily's character clearly. Is this like this? This is already a big problem. Listening to Yayu's description, Aina frowned slightly. Of course it's just speculation. Maybe something happened to her that made her distrustful of others. But you just asked her to be your supporter, so there should be no problem in this regard. Aina said this. In her opinion, Yayu is not the type who likes to meddle in other people's business. What kind of past or unspeakable secret the girl has nothing to do with him. Yayu, what kind of monster did you encounter today, and how many magic crystals did you get? After finishing talking about the supporters, Aina curiously approached Yayu and asked him what he had gained today. There's not a single one. I accidentally froze the magic crystal to pieces. Yayu shrugged helplessly and said words that stunned Aina for a long time. Frozen to pieces. Although she had experienced Yayu's magic up close, Aina was still stunned by the other party's answer. Perhaps, Lady Hestia is right at all. You are truly a talented person who makes people feel scared and intimidated. Well, but next time I don't plan to use magic. I will try to use weapons to deal with the monsters I encounter. Yeah, you said this and motioned to Aina with the long sword behind him. Ah, now I can somewhat understand why your god would choose to build you such a weapon. Aina tilted her head and said amusedly. But yeah, are your attributes okay? If you wield a long sword like this and fight in the depths. Aina remembered that Hestia once said that Yayu's magic attribute was very outstanding. In other words, does it mean that Yayu's other attributes were mediocre? In this case, it may be fine on the first few floors, but it will be very difficult on deeper floors, right? I'm not an idiot. When I encounter a monster that I can't deal with, I will naturally use magic to solve it. Yeah, you said something funny, expressing helplessness at Aina's almost doting concern. Ah, that's right. It's true. Listening to what Yayu said, Aina showed a rare look of embarrassment on her face. It was almost dusk when he left the Adventurers Guild. When Yayu returned to the dilapidated church, Hestia had already prepared dinner and was waiting for him. How about it? What kind of supporter did you hire? Is it a boy or a girl? Not long after Yayu sat down, Hestia couldn't help but ask. She always felt that Hestia was more concerned about whether the person was male or female than what kind of supporter she hired. Yayu shook his head in a funny way, and then answered as if he was deliberately teasing the girl. Well, the supporter is a cute girl. Hey, cute girl. Jumping up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, Hestia had an expression of disbelief. How can this be like this? As a girl, it's hard to help Yayu. You need a more reliable supporter. But I think Lily is very good, no worse than other supporters. Lily. Oh, that's the name of the supporter. Ah, Ju, are you actually calling her so intimate? Damn, the hateful supporters must have used despicable means to seduce Yayu. No, we can't go on like this. I have to meet with the supporter and let him know that Yayu belongs to me. As a supporter, don't cross the line at will. Hestia was thinking this in her heart. When the girl raised her head, she saw Yayu's somewhat funny expression. It's so cute, Hestia looks jealous and angry. Who is jealous and angry? She is just a supporter, is it possible that I will still be acquainted with her? Hestia's arrogant hands crossed her chest, driving the blue satin, making the pair of very unscientific breasts on the girl's chest look even more attractive. Then the next second, Hestia, whose true nature was exposed, rushed over like a koala, and her entire body was entangled with Yayu. Yayu, you too. Don't think girls are cute when you see them. Someone who is obviously cuter is right next to you. That's natural. My Hestia is the cutest. Touching Hestia's head tenderly, Yayu said this, which actually made the bold Hestia blush with embarrassment. Yayu, I noticed that you are becoming more and more eloquent. You must have put a lot of effort into conquering Riveria. You are not as dull as before. Yes. Hearing what Hestia said, Yayu thought for a moment, and he seemed to have changed a lot without even realizing it. Of course, it would be nice if we could be a little bolder and more ambitious. Resting her head gently on Yayu's chest, Hestia said softly with a faint blush. Are you bold? I think I am bold enough. Yayu touched the tip of his nose in a funny way. Whether it was wandering around in the dungeon or talking about things like Riveria's confession, it couldn't be described as bold, right? Yayu has always been very courageous, or in other words, he has never considered what fear is. These two are bold and different. Hestia, who buried her head in Yayu's chest, muttered reluctantly, but her voice was too low. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime Shang. Chapter 63. What a failure. Is there anything I didn't do well enough? I didn't seem to treat her harshly. After the 3-day agreement ended, the girl named Lily ran away from Yayu with a face of panic as if running for her life. This made Yayu a little confused as to what he had done to make this girl avoid him like a snake or a scorpion. Although he did use some clever tricks to use the girl to attract monsters, Yayu saved the girl just right every time without causing her any harm. Why did she run away even though she was perfect? Thanks to Lily, Yayu encountered many monsters in the past 2 days. Except for some that were broken due to shaking hands and freezing, most of the monsters were destroyed by Yayu using his long sword. Yayu became more and more comfortable in using weapons, so smoothly that even he felt surprised. That feeling of proficiency is like being born for the sword. However, there seems to be no improvement in strength. Yayu was able to deal with these monsters purely by relying on his skilled skills and frost. Although he tried his best to restrain himself, Yayu still couldn't contain his frost. The frost and cold air seemed to accompany his thoughts and actions. Frequently, the monster would be frozen to death before the blade of the sword could reach him. It can only be said that with the utmost restraint, Yayu was able to at least get some magic crystals, so that he would not be able to just stare at a pile of debris in a daze like before. But why did she run away in fear? I obviously take good care of her. At a place on the 5th floor of the dungeon maze, Yayu sighed helplessly. Thanks to the girl, Yayu earned more than 10,000 wallis in just 2 days. Although it is a considerable amount of wealth, it is still far from being able to buy a luxurious residence or something. Are you going to find another supporter? After losing the girl who acted as a bait, Yayu could no longer meet monsters as a matter of course. Just when he was thinking about finding another supporter, he suddenly felt a throbbing in his heart. This feeling, could it be said that it is? Yayu stood up with his eyes widened and immediately walked in one direction. 2 adventurers entered the 5th floor. But not from above, but from below. With no obvious injuries and steady steps, Ace and Riveria took nearly 3 days to complete the journey from the 37th floor of the deep area to here. Not only did they have to travel a long distance to get to the ground, they also had to bear the threat of monster attacks 24 hours a day, but neither of them showed any signs of fatigue on their faces. It wouldn't take long for them to return to the ground from the underground city. However, when they got here, Ace, who was walking in front, stopped. Riveria asked the figure with graceful blonde hair. What's wrong? He came. There was excitement in her words. The girl who had defeated the 37th floor alone not long ago and had enough qualifications to be promoted to LV6 showed a very excited look. He came. Riveria was stunned for a moment, not understanding what Ace was talking about. At this moment, a figure came out of the corner. Yayu. Even Riveria did not expect to encounter Yayu in this place and in such a way. In fact, since the last separation, Riveria has been subconsciously avoiding meeting Yayu again. She couldn't tell what she was feeling. Riveria always felt that if she continued to stay with Yayu, something might really happen. After the monster festival came back, Riveria also heard the complaints of her lord god Loki. After hearing the news, the girl's first reaction was disappointment, and then she breathed a sigh of relief. He breathed a sigh of relief that he didn't have to be alone with Yayu. The two of them were alone together, and coupled with Yayu's character that made her somewhat helpless, Riveria really didn't know what would happen. Even Riveria would think about how she would react if Yayu really did something to her in that situation. Rivelia. At first, when he discovered the girl's existence, Yayu couldn't control his inner excitement, but now that he actually stood here and met her, Yayu's mood was surprisingly calm. The feeling of satisfaction that as long as she was fine, that was enough lingered in Yayu's heart. Although it calmed down, Yayu could feel that the love for Riveria in his heart had not faded, but instead became even hotter. Perhaps this has something to do with Yayu's character. This kind of deep-seated emotion may seem dull and hard to express, but in fact it is the most intense. Originally, she was a little excited to see Yayu and Isai. After challenging the class leader, the girl wanted to fly back directly to find Yayu and have a good discussion with her. She also didn't expect that she would meet the other party in this way. But the encounter was an encounter, but the result was that Ace watched these two people show off their affection in front of her. I said, "Are you just ignoring my existence like this?" After Ace spoke with resentment, Reveria finally came to her senses and looked away with an embarrassed look. "I'm sorry Ace, I haven't seen Reveria for a long time, so I'm really overjoyed." Yayu looked at Isai openly and said this, but it made Reveria feel shy again. "Can you stop talking about things like this in a serious manner? You really make people don't know what to do." "Yayu, I defeated the class master on the 37th floor and accumulated enough great achievements to be promoted to LV6. When Aisi said this, Yayu was slightly startled, and Yayu who reacted immediately smiled and congratulated. "Congratulations Ace. But there is one more thing I have to do before I can be promoted to LV6. In order to untie my knot, I hope to have a spar with you." "Hey, spar with me." Not only Yayu didn't react, but Reveria didn't react either. "Why do you want to compete with me? I don't think I am your opponent, Ace." Yayu said this, while Isai shook her head. "You can make Bert unable to fight back, so you are naturally qualified to be my opponent. And if I don't have a fight with you, I may never be able to get over that incident." As Ace said this, she couldn't help but recall the scene when the two met for the first time. "If I want to become LV6, I must overcome the shadow left by the frost." The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 64. That thing, what is it? Listening to what Isai said, Yayu tilted his head and showed a somewhat incomprehensible expression. "Have you ever done anything to Ace? It seems not. As expected, have you forgotten it? Or is it because you think that level is not worth mentioning, so you don't even remember it?" As Ace said this, she pouted a little unhappy. Seeing the girl's cute performance, Yayu scratched his head helplessly. "Although you say so, I still can't remember what I have done to you to make you want to challenge me, Ace." Yayu is unwilling to accept my challenge. Listening to what Yayu said, Isai tilted her head and said, "Well, I'm definitely no match for you, so what's the point of challenging me?" Yayu said this, but Isai shook her head. "How could it be? How could Yayu be so strong and not be my opponent? The reason why I challenge you is to overcome the fear of your frost in my heart. Otherwise, I may not be able to become a true LV6. Ace said so seriously, which surprised Reveria a little. Is there any fear left in Isai's heart towards Yayu? When did you have such feelings? Was it when you first met? Reveria, who has never experienced the horror of Yayu's frost, has no way of understanding what kind of emotion this is. However, thinking of Bert's situation in the family, the girl seems to have some understanding. Ever since he struggled to survive on the verge of death, Bert seemed to have become a different person. He who usually talks the most nonsense has become silent, and his combat training seems to be a desperate one. Maybe this change is a good thing for him, but it's still a bit concerning. Are you overcoming the fear in your heart? Listening to what Isai said, Yayu showed a somewhat embarrassed expression. He knew very well what his frost meant. It was a power that even he himself could not control. To be honest, Yayu didn't want to use it. Strength. How can a power that he cannot master well be his own? If possible, Yayu really doesn't want to continue to abuse such power. I don't even want to use such strength to fight with my friends, because it may hurt them. Thinking of this, Yayu spoke seriously to Isai, who was standing in front of him. Ace, are we friends? Why? Isai was slightly stunned at first, then nodded vigorously. Of course, we are friends. It is precisely because we are friends that I cannot agree to your request. If it is a discussion between friends, maybe I will be very happy, but if I fight you with power that is not under my control, you will be injured. I'll have a bad conscience or something. Yeah, you said with a wry smile, and then he spread his hands in front of the two girls. Perhaps, this is really a very powerful power, but unfortunately this powerful power does not entirely belong to me. Is this like this? Then it seems that this should be Yayu's racial talent, right? Reveria, who knew this magic very well, immediately thought of such a possibility. But, with such a terrifying racial talent, could Yayu be a descendant of a god? Staring at Yayu with some curiosity, Reveria immediately asked. Yayu, what kind of blood is flowing in your body? What kind of blood is flowing in my body? Because of Reveria's question, he was slightly stunned, and then there was a moment of confusion on Yayu's face, and then he shook his head. I don't know where I come from. I don't know anything about my past or my parents. Yayu said this with a somewhat bitter expression. He thought he could forget these things and concentrate on integrating into the world, but after all, it was mentioned again. Sure enough, I still care a little about who I am and where I belong. How could I not care about this kind of thing? No matter how much you integrate into this world, you still can't change the fact that you are an outsider. Sorry for mentioning your sadness. Seeing Yayu's appearance, Reveria said apologetically. It doesn't matter, it's okay because it's Reveria. This is something that needs to be told to Reveria. Without giving up such a perfect opportunity, Yayu spoke so affectionately that the corners of Reveria's mouth twitched slightly. Really, I forget to tease myself all the time. She put her hand on her forehead helplessly. If someone else had done such a thing, Reveria might feel disgusted. But when facing Yayu, the girl felt more pampered and helpless. It seems like a kind of pampering from the elders to the younger ones. After all, Reveria also has such a maternal attitude among the family members. If Reveria knew that it was her pampering that caused Yayu's obsession with her, she would definitely feel helpless, right? But what about the impact you had on me? Is it possible that you don't want to take responsibility? Because your relationship has left a psychological shadow on me, and it is very likely that there will be no improvement in the future. Listening to what Yayu said, the fighting spirit emanating from Isai also faded a lot, but the girl still stared at Yayu with a look of resentment, which made him feel a little embarrassed. What you said seems to be fine, but why does it sound so strange to me? Anyway, let's get out of here first. It's not good to talk in the dungeon. Reveria said this, Yayu and Isai both nodded in agreement, and immediately the group set off towards the ground. While walking on the road, the three of them chatted with each other about recent events. When they learned that the Loki family would start a new expedition in 10 days, Yayu was slightly depressed. I'm so busy. There's nothing we can do, because we are the most powerful family group in Orario, and we have to take the lead no matter what. With a gentle smile, Reveria spoke so softly. The girl's amorous feelings at that moment made Yayu deeply intoxicated and unable to extricate himself. Something is wrong with Wei Wei, my heart is throbbing. I can't hold it any longer, I really want to, just snatch Reveria away. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 65. Such an evil thought occurred in his heart for a moment, but Yayu quickly suppressed it. Obviously, Reveria would never be happy if she did this. I have to say that Yayu felt that he was a little stupid. After expressing his feelings to Reveria, he had no idea what to do. I have absolutely no experience in love or anything like that. Now go try proposing a date? If it's a relationship, it should start with a date, right? When he was about to reach the ground, Yayu rolled his eyes and immediately looked at the girl beside him. Reveria's profile was flawless, and she was indeed an elf incarnate in elegance. She was completely different from her frizzy self, who looked like a young boy. Thinking of this, Yayu couldn't help but shook his head in a funny way. He was so nervous just walking with her, let alone the two of them going on dates alone in the future. However, if Yayu could stand in front of Reveria, he would be able to find that the girl is actually not much better than him. Reveria was just pretending to be calm. It could be seen that her pupils were tightly contracted, her lips were pursed tightly, and her limbs were moving very stiffly. Yayu is nervous, but Reveria is afraid. She is afraid to continue to stay with Yayu like this, because she is always worried that she will be affected by Yayu and become no longer herself. Maybe I really fell in love with him. Glancing at Yayu beside her with her peripheral vision, Reveria's feelings were very complicated. She didn't know what was wrong with her and why she had such feelings for Yayu. Reveria is gentle and accommodating to others, but obviously her feelings for Yayu are not the same. It was a completely new feeling that transcended these two feelings. Even Reveria herself didn't know what it was. Love. Sighing softly, Reveria is not that kind of feminist, nor does she have the idea of despising men. Although elves are very picky about love, it doesn't mean Reveria doesn't long for a shoulder she can rely on. But as one of the most powerful adventurers among the Loki familia, he is the indispensable core of the team. Coupled with Reveria's gentle personality, almost everyone regards her as an elder. There may be admirers, but no one dares to show it. Maybe the moment Yayu Zhang confessed his love, he was already moved by it, right? Elves are actually such creatures. Their arrogance and elegance are just their disguises. In fact, their hearts are more delicate than any other race. Once they are truly moved, they will remain loyal until death. Are you really emotional? To Yayu? But, so what, it's impossible, she and Yayu are destined to be impossible. Sighing softly in her heart, Reveria had made up her mind to find an opportunity to explain to Yayu. Rejection must be clean and neat, without any sloppiness. Only in this way can he completely give up, right? This mistake has been going on for a long time, and he cannot be allowed to make this mistake again. Then let's say goodbye for now. Because they were all familiar with the roads, it only took about 10 minutes to reach the ground from the 5th floor of the underground maze. When Isai and Reveria appeared together in the square, it naturally aroused some thoughts, but soon everyone's attention fell on Yayu. Who is he? Why does he stand with Sword Girl and Nine Demon Girl in everything? Let's just say goodbye. Standing at the fork of the street, Yayu hesitated to speak. After all, he did not say anything about the date. Well, we'll meet again by fate. Reveria also turned her face slightly, not daring to look at Yayu's face as she said this. On the other hand, Isai stood there and looked at Yayu and then at Reveria and suddenly spoke as if she had thought of something. It's still very early at that time, why don't we go to training together? Why? Why? Yayu and Reveria both shouted softly, somewhat confused as to what Isai was talking about. Yayu, you want to master your own true power, right? Whether it's sword skills or controlling your magic. As Aisi said this, she looked at the long sword carried by Yayu behind her back. It seems like you are very interested in sword skills. What do you think? Do you want me to teach you? As for Reveria, he is the best magician in Orario. If she comes to teach you magic, it will definitely get twice the result with half the effort, right? Listening to the suggestion put forward by Isai, a glimmer of light flashed in Yayu's eyes. In fact, Hestia made a similar request to Loki for him, but it was rejected by Yayu. At that time, he was thinking about Hestia and didn't want to rely on her dignity to gain guidance from others. But it's different now it's Ace who takes the initiative. Well, is this good? Will Reveria have time? Yayu stared at Reveria so uneasily, making the latter curl her lips helplessly. Yayu is still as cunning as ever, asking me directly if I have time instead of asking if I agree, as if I have already agreed to your request. As for time, anyway, Ace and I are taking a lot of leisure before the next expedition. Turning her face away slightly, Reveria said absent-mindedly. Then I'm really sorry. I'm going to trouble Eyes and Reveria. No trouble. As for the reward, after you masters your own power, you must accept my challenge as soon as possible. Well, that's natural. You smiled and nodded. All this fell into Reveria's eyes, and for some reason the girl felt a strange feeling in her heart. What, this strange feeling, could it be jealousy? How could it be like this? You just had a few words with Isai, after all, they are friends. Reveria didn't even dare to turn her face back, because she knew her face must be very red now. The elegance and calmness of an elf were gradually lost, and Reveria looked like a little girl who was trying not to get angry at her boyfriend. No. We can't continue like this. We must find an opportunity to explain. What a depravity, Reveria. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Shang. Chapter 66. Although it was said to be teaching, because they were members of different families after all, it was still necessary to avoid suspicion. As dusk approached, the three of them came to the city wall surrounding the labyrinth city Orario. At this time, the position of the three of them was in the outer part to the northwest. From the huge city wall, they could have a clear view of the inner city. The vast and boundless scenery was intoxicating. There are the Pantheon and the Colosseum, as well as the headquarters that should belong to the famous family clan. These huge buildings that are as tall as the city wall can only be said to be breathtaking. In addition, the beauty of their shapes can be seen from a distance, which makes people sigh endlessly. In particular, the Tower of Babel standing in the center of the city is much higher than the city wall, which strengthens its presence and power. The small houses that fill each area also have a unique flavor that you will never tire of seeing. The city, which was divided into 8 districts by 8 avenues, gradually lost its chaotic bustle until this time. The magic stone lamps went out one after another, and Orario was about to fall asleep. Are you ready? At this moment, Ace spoke softly, while Reveria stood aside and watched the two people sparring. Where to start? You ask so stupidly. He suddenly realized that he was so ignorant about fighting. He knew almost nothing about how to fight, and what to use to fight. However, when facing the silver-backed ape, he originally drew his sword and accepted the challenge, but at that time, his attack seemed to have no routine, right? If I have to say it, it is the most common and basic slash, but with the absolute power, it can easily cut off everything. Where to start? Isai was talking to herself, looking at Yayu up and down. Reveria, it will be up to you later about magic. Well, I will pay close attention to the magic power fluctuations in Yayu. Okay, let's get started. Use the move you think is the strongest to attack directly. Pulling out the thin sword from her waist and assuming an attacking stance, Isai pointed the sword at Yayu and said this. We still have to fight in the end. Looking at Isai's serious and calm face, Yayu shrugged helplessly and quickly took down the sword from his back. Holding the hilt of the sword tightly, Yayu immediately took a step forward and slashed hard at Isai. Without any intention of dodging, Isai used the slender sword in her hand to resist Yayu's slash. The general attack method of weapons such as long swords and big swords is to slash, and they are very powerful when swinging wide and open. And because of the attack method, general attacks are also difficult for people who use small and light weapons to control and resist. But my power is really too weak. Yayu said this first, making Isai nodded sheepishly. Well, Yeah, after all, you haven't been an adventurer for a long time, so it's normal for you to have poor strength attributes. Yeah, actually, you don't have to be depressed. Everyone has their own attributes that they are good at. Yours is magic power, so there is no need to ask for your strength to be at the same level as your own magic power. Reveria, who was standing aside, said this while watching the short exchange between the two. I just want to use the power that truly belongs to me. Yeah, you said this after looking down at his hands. What gave you the illusion that your magic power is not yours? Reveria frowned slightly in confusion. She walked to Yayu and stared at him seriously. If you simply think that magicians are not as good as warriors and that magic power is not as good as sword skills, I will be angry. As the most powerful magician in Orario, magic is everything to Reveria. Naturally, she does not allow anyone to say that magic is inferior to sword skills. However, looking at the girl standing in front of him with her red lips pouting and an angry expression, Yayu, who was a little distracted, was thinking about how it would feel if he just kissed her like this. Then, he actually did it. Yayu has always been a guy who does whatever he thinks of, and he never cares how audacious his actions are. Moreover, when facing Reveria, his self-control itself became much worse. Being attacked so suddenly by Yayu, Reveria screamed and took several steps back, then stared at Yayu with a look of shame and anger. Isai on the other side tilted her head with a strange expression on her face. Just now, because Yayu's movements were too fast and he only tried so briefly, she didn't notice what happened. What's wrong, Reveria? No. Nothing. Looking at the serious Yayu standing in front of her, Reveria couldn't help but grit her teeth angrily. She suddenly realized that she had seen the wrong person. She always thought that Yayu was a very honest child, but it turned out that this guy was actually a wolf in sheep's clothing. How many times had you taken advantage of yourself like this? The most annoying thing is that she has no way to resist. It's so abominable. Answer me quickly. Do you look down on magic? She asked like a coquettish little girl, and Reveria's sweet tone made Ace shiver. It's really so sweet. Standing here, have you become a light bulb? Reveria might not be able to notice it herself, but as a bystander, Ace stared at her and Yayu with a strange expression. Although I was happy that my friend fell in love, there was also a strange feeling that I couldn't explain. And there was a little worry on Isai's face. Because this relationship is destined to not last long, thinking from a rational point of view, Ace still hopes that Reveria will not have too close a relationship with Yayu. As friends, that's the ultimate limit. It's not that I look down on magic, there is no difference in strength or weakness in power. What matters is the person who uses the power. But as for me. Yayu said this and squeezed his palm. Weak and powerless, just like an ordinary person, but underneath this mortal body is hidden a power that makes even the gods tremble. The frost on my body seems to not belong to me. It is not my own strength, how can I feel at ease? The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 67. Yayu said this, and Reveria shook her head. How come? Power is power, it belongs to you. Maybe these powers are not obtained by your efforts, but they are passed down with your blood. Those are things passed down to you by your parents and even your ancestors. They belong to you. There is no need to feel confused because of this. Reveria gently held Yayu's hands and said with a chuckle. A power of my own. As a mage, there are natural physical requirements, but the requirements are not particularly high, as long as you don't have to take a breath after walking a few steps or reciting a spell. So there is no need to go into deep training in this area. The most important thing for you now is to control your magic power so that the power that truly belongs to you can be put to use. It's getting late today. Let's start the formal teaching tomorrow morning. In the following time, Isai will exercise your physical fitness and teach you some sword skills. As for me, I will teach you how to use it correctly. Magic. Looking at Riveria's serious face and intimidated by the girl's majesty, you couldn't help but nodded. By the way, you are not allowed to do any strange things during the teaching process, you know, otherwise, as a teacher, I will be unhappy. Strange things, what do you mean? Seeing Riveria's cute appearance, Yayu, who was a little shocked at first, laughed easily again, and then gently held the girl's finger pointing at him. As long as you know it in your heart, if you make me unhappy then, I won't teach you anything. Slapping Yayu's palm away angrily, Riveria approached Yayu again, her slender fingers almost pointing to his face. The hand grasped Riveria's wrist and pushed the girl's entire body back. This time Yayu kissed her in a more unrestrained manner, allowing Isai who was standing aside to see clearly. Sticking out her tongue slightly, Ace turned her head consciously. The girl blushed and listened to Riveria's screams and struggles. Huh, he is indeed a magician. His strength attribute is indeed not very strong. After the deep kiss ended, the panting Yayu said with a chuckle. You're just a bastard. Big bastard. With her pretty face blushing like a ripe tomato, Riveria beat Yayu's chest like a baby. As an elegant elf, the girl seemed so lacking in words to express anger and curses. If being a jerk can get you the girl you like, I don't mind doing it at all. What does it mean to get it? It sounds so ugly, as if someone is a commodity. Listening to what Yayu said, Riveria curled her lips unhappily, with a flirtatious shyness. Should I leave for a while? Seeing Yayu and Riveria flirting like no one else, Isai on the side spoke with a sad look on her face. Cough cough cough, let's go together, it's time to go back. After reacting, Riveria cleared her throat, then stood up seriously and said to Ace. Then, see you tomorrow. Well, see you tomorrow. Nodding slightly, Yayu watched Isai and Riveria leave, and at this time, the sun in the sky had completely sunk below the horizon. It's getting dark. While muttering to himself, Yayu had a faint smile on his lips. My relationship with Riveria has become closer again, and now I understand her feelings. It's not that I don't like myself, I'm just worried about the rules. Rules set by the gods. Sighing softly while talking to himself in his heart, Yayu's right eye flashed a hint of cold blue. In this case, just destroy all those rules and establish your own new rules. You obviously came back early, why did you two rush back now when everyone from the expedition team is back? When Ace and Riveria walked in, Loki stood up from the sofa, stretched a lot, and then walked towards them. She asked with some confusion, because it was only when the sky was almost completely dark that Ace and Riveria rushed back. The expedition team that was traveling with them, or rather was left behind by them, had already rushed back. It was delayed due to some things. Riveria said this, while Loki narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at the two girls with inquiring eyes. I said you Isai-chan and Riveria-chan, are you too? Loki said this in a deliberately long tone, and his probing eyes made Riveria feel a little nervous. As for Ace, who still looked so cute, she didn't seem to be frightened by Loki's aura at all. You two must have gone on a date secretly, right? Lord God, what are you talking about? As expected, we shouldn't expect anything good to come out of Loki's mouth. Riveria put her hand on her forehead helplessly. Well, isn't it? By the way, I heard what they said. You actually defeated the guardian of the hierarchy by yourself. It's really great. You are worthy of my dear Isai-chan. Too close. In response to Loki's affection, Ace just pushed her face to the side with an expressionless expression. What? Hurry up, let's update the ability values. Good. Hey, it's been a long time since I touched Miss Isai's tender skin. If you dare to use your hands or feet, I will kill them. Hey, is it true? Loki, who was a little panicked when he heard the serious tone, put his hand on Ai's shoulder and left the reception room together. Reveria, on the other hand, breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, the girl was really afraid that God would find out about her and Yayu. You are indeed my Isai-chan. She has been successfully promoted to LV6. Loki's cheers rang out from the room inside, and Reveria showed a faint smile. I really congratulate you, Ace. If you look like this, you will be one step closer to that path, right? The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 68. The sky was dark. The eastern sky has not yet welcomed the dawn, and the boundary between night and morning is ambiguous. Because he was so looking forward to it, Yayu came to the city wall early. Isai did not come. Reveria was the only one standing in front of Yayu. Hey, where's Miss Ace? Although he was very happy in his heart, Yayu still pretended to be strange and asked. As for Ace, she is being pestered by Lord God and has no way to escape. After all, having just become LV6 makes Lord God extremely happy. Oh, has Ace really become a LV6 adventurer? Yayu is not surprised by this. After all, he is a genius who is famous throughout Orario. I am afraid he is also the adventurer who has reached the LV6 level the fastest in history, right? Well, being able to get to this point is inseparable from Isai's hard work. Let's not talk about this. We don't have much time, so let's start quickly. The fact that Reveria and Ace taught Yayu was naturally hidden from the people in the family members. Once discovered, there would be a lot of trouble. Not to mention that Reveria herself felt guilty. It would be terrible if others discovered the relationship between her and Yayu. The rule that men and women from different families cannot talk about marriage was not set by Loki alone. It was the joint will of the gods. You can imagine the consequences if it is violated. In fact, it is very simple to solve this problem. All it takes is one of Reveria or Yayu to break away from the original family. But obviously, neither of them would make such a choice. Yayu, how much do you know about magic? Without any further delay, Reveria quickly started teaching Yayu. Magic. Yayu frowned slightly because he didn't know how to answer at all. The so-called magic is a concrete existence that is driven by its own magic power and combined with various elemental powers in the environment. For example, fire or water flow. Reveria quickly fell into the role of teacher, or she had always been like this in the Loki familia. As she said this, red and blue shadows emerged from her palms, showing them to Yayu. Magic has many attributes. The most common ones are wind, fire, water, and earth. These are the four basic attributes. On top of the four basic attributes, there are many other complex attributes. For example, Yayuyo's Icid is the extension of the water attribute. A long time ago, magic has actually always been the patent of our elves. However, because the gods came to the world, many other races have the possibility of using magic. But although other races have learned to use magic, the magic they master is generally monotonous, with a single attribute. There are very few who master multiple attributes. Reveria said with a proud expression. As for me, I have mastered many attributes and am proficient in thunder, ice, and light attribute magic. As for Yayu, I can only use ice attribute magic, right? Reveria asked, and Yayu nodded gently. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Your inability to use magic with other attributes may be the reason why you didn't learn it. Maybe this frost magic is just the blood power you inherited. Your body itself has extremely powerful magic power. It should be easy to learn other magics as well. Of course, there is no rush to learn magic. The most important thing now is to learn to control the magic in your body. Reveria said this and stretched out her hand towards Yayu. Give me your hand and I will guide you in meditation. Meditation is also a very important skill for a magician. Meditation can quickly restore magic power and slowly enhance magic power. Reveria held Yayu's hand and sat down cross-legged, and Yayu followed suit and sat down. Close your eyes and concentrate. You can see the things running and roaring in your body. That is your power, your magic power. Regarding the magic power in Yayu's body, Reveria had already experienced it once. At that time, I just held him and cast healing magic, and felt the continuous torrent of magic coming from Yayu's body. The sheer size, quantity, and overwhelming power of that magical power made her deeply fascinated. As a magician, what I pursue in my life is this kind of thing. The pinnacle of magic still has a camera. Reveria felt that she would never be able to become the strongest magician in the world, but she saw this hope in Yayu. Compared with the other reasons, this is the most important reason why Reveria wants to teach Yayu. She didn't want to see Yayu's terrible talent wasted in vain. She wanted to let the other party know that magic would not lose to strength, skills, or anything like that. In fact, the skills used in magic will be even more magical and charming. For example, the accuracy of magic control, the timing of releasing magic, and the amount of damage caused after releasing magic. Very good, I have already felt the magic power surging in your body. Do you feel it? Hey! With a cute cry like an electric shock, Reveria retracted her hand and stared at Yayu with a look of shame and anger. What are you doing? I didn't do anything. Yayu showed an innocent look. Didn't I tell you that Bugzu does some inexplicable things? If you want to touch it, I'll let you touch it enough when it's over. Reveria said angrily. After she finished speaking, she woke up and covered her mouth in a panic, but it was obviously too late. This is what you said, let's continue. Yayu grabbed Reveria's hands again and let them close his eyes. Are you the devil star that I am destined for? With such a long sigh in her heart, Reveria knew that even if she went to defend herself now, I'm afraid Yayu wouldn't go back and listen to her. That's all, isn't it just, being touched? It won't lose a piece of flesh. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 69. Hey, I really wish time passed a little slower. At around 7 or 8 o'clock, Reveria left the city wall with sloppy steps and a dazed expression. She left the family members secretly. If she was discovered, something bad might happen, so she had to go back early. Although the family members are currently undergoing comprehensive repairs after returning from the expedition, there are still many things that require her to worry about and be busy. After Reveria left, Yayu sighed and stood up with an unfinished expression. In just a few hours of teaching, Reveria taught Yayu only the simplest and most basic magician training methods. Although it was only the foundation of the basics, it still benefited Yayu a lot. Because he found the direction through those few words of the girl. Yayu had always been unwilling or even afraid of this power in his body, but with Reveria's words, he finally realized how stupid the things he had done before were. Being afraid of your own power, it really seems ridiculous and stupid. As for power, just use it obediently, because I am your master. Grinning slightly, he pulled out a twisted smile, and the sound of breaking ice chips came from Yayu's clenched fist. With a wave of his hand, Yayu scattered the crystal ice chips behind him, instantly covering the masonry of the city wall with a layer of light white frost. I have been a mage from beginning to end. Why should I give up what I am best at and go into close combat? It was only then that Yayu had to admit that Hephaestus was indeed the greatest craftsman, and the other party was worthy of the title of God of Craftsmen. It seems that he made a long sword for himself because of Hestia's suggestion, but in fact, this long sword that was made to facilitate the circulation of magic power is actually a staff. It is a long sword with the shape of a knight's sword, but it is as heavy and flexible as a rapier. Therefore, in fact, this long sword is not suitable for performing wide open slashes, because the sword body is full of toughness, which will leak the power of the slash. You did it beautifully, Hephaestus. Even I was fooled by you. Yayu smiled and shook his head. He clenched the hilt of the long sword, and then activated the cold frost power instantly. The sword was immediately covered with a layer of light white frost, but Yayu had no intention of stopping and continued to activate the magic power until the sound of shattering came from the sword. Yayu never used all his strength from the beginning. As he said, even the weapons of gods may not be able to withstand his frost. Although Hephaestus is the god of craftsmen, the weapons she forges in this mortal world must still be in the category of mortal soldiers. I have to say that Hephaestus spent a lot of effort on this long sword, unlike the toy-like weapon that was easily crushed by Yayu in the shop at that time. But even so, after enduring almost all of Yayu's magic power for more than 10 seconds, the long sword was completely shattered, and then a light thing fell into his palm. The texture of the wood showed unevenness, and the thing in Yayu's hand looked like an ordinary piece of wood. What's this? Yayu stared at the thing in his palm with some curiosity. It is a stick-shaped object about the same size as a staff, but it is completely different from those exquisitely shaped staffs. With his dark eyes and distorted shape, some people would believe him if he said it was a fire stick in the kitchen. Although I don't know what this thing is, it is obvious that it was definitely not created by Hephaestus. Because Yayu felt extraordinary power from this thing, which was beyond the power of gods in the mortal world. When Yayu looked at the fire stick-like thing in his hand so curiously, a halo of light rose up from the fragments of the frozen longsword shell, projecting a figure. It's really uncomfortable to meet in this way. A somewhat helpless voice sounded, and Hephaestus's face appeared in front of Yayu. You can see me, that means you have discovered the secret hidden in this sword. Although I am very reluctant, I have to admit that I lost. I have no way to build a sword that will not be destroyed by your power. Weapon. The projection of Hephaestus said this, showing a serious expression. To be honest, I don't want you to see this message. I even hope that you can really become a swordsman. In this case, you may avoid a lot of trouble. Listen to me, your power is a power that does not belong to this world. Hestia does not know your past, but it is certain that you are definitely a descendant of a certain god, and it is even possible that you are the reincarnation of a god. In my memory, the only one who uses the power of frost is the goddess of ice and snow, Dianyi, but you should have nothing to do with her, because your frost is more powerful, terrifying, and aggressive than Dianyi. I don't know what I think. The gods should be notified of the existence of uncertain factors like you. No one can guarantee whether you will stand on the opposite side of the gods in the future. But I gave up this idea. Because I really don't want to see that idiot Hestia look sad. I got this stick-like thing by chance. I don't know exactly what it is, but what is certain is that it is very powerful, and its characteristic is that it can absorb all magic power. I think it might be the most suitable weapon for you. Finally, I hope you can remember what I said, learn to hide yourself, and stop doing high-profile things like confessing in public, otherwise, you will definitely be targeted by some people. By then, no matter it is both you and Hestia will be in a very passive situation. After saying these words, the projection in front of Yayu disappeared, leaving Yayu alone with his head lowered, wondering what he was thinking about. Reveria mentioned inheritance, and Hephaestus confirmed this, so, who is she a descendant of? Or is it actually the reincarnation of a certain god? But, there is such an obvious characteristic as using the power of frost, but in the end, I still can't find the corresponding person. Would you like to be more low-key? I'm a little sorry. Hephaestus, there are some things that a man cannot compromise on. For the sake of Reveria, even if you raise a flag of rebellion against the gods, so what? The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xie Shang. Chapter 70. Compared with the bulky sword, this fire stick was much easier to carry. Yu directly inserted it into the gap between the gauntlet and the arm, and then went to the dungeon. He listened to Hephaestus' warning, but even so, Yu's reaction was just oh. Not to mention that Yu didn't take the god seriously in his heart, and for the sake of his relationship with Riveria, sooner or later he would have to go to the gods to argue. Of course, maybe things can't be solved by relying on theory at that time. After all, will the gods listen to the voice of a mortal? Looking for a supporter. Standing at the entrance of the dungeon, Yu muttered to himself. Although I have mastered the method of encountering monsters in the dungeon, I still have a little trouble without a supporter to assist me. Just when Yu looked around and was about to find a supporter, a familiar figure appeared in front of him. Sir, do you need a supporter? A cheap supporter. Carrying a large backpack and a somewhat stiff smile, Lily stood in front of Yu and said this. Well, didn't you run away last time when I said I would continue to employ you? Why are you back to look for me now? Yu looked at the girl standing in front of him in amusement, and from the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a man walking over not far away, cursing. I see, I ran into trouble again and wanted to solve it myself. Yu, who instantly understood what happened, shook his head, lowered his head to the girl in front of him and showed a kind smile. I'll help you solve it, but you have to listen to me for the next 3 days. When Yu said this, Lily showed a reluctant expression, but still nodded. After all, she is just a supporter with nothing. She is completely helpless against the adventurers, and no one will come to help her. The reason why she went to Yu was just to give it a try. After all, it was Yu who helped her in the first place. It's you again. The man who was chasing him stopped. He was the adventurer who was scolded by Yu and Lu in the alley a few days ago. After seeing Yu again, the adventurer obviously looked very angry. His face was twisted and one hand was pressed on the hilt of the sword. Go away, no one will help you this time. Hand over this girl obediently, or I will make you look good. Following this man's roar, the surrounding adventurers cast curious glances over. Arguments and conflicts of interest between adventurers or between adventurers and supporters are common, and most of the time it's just a good show. You must know that there are people who specialize in protecting order near the Tower of Babel. In a group situation, conflicts between adventurers will be ignored as long as no one is killed. The adventurers who have conflicts are also very aware of how serious it is to cause trouble with human lives, and most of the time it is a small fight. But it was obvious that the male adventurer who was chasing Lily had lost his mind. In addition, he was extremely jealous of meeting Yu's enemy, and he already wanted to tear Yu into pieces. May I know why he keeps chasing you, Miss Lily? Looking at the angry and irrational young adventurer in front of him, Yu asked Lily beside him with some humor. That's because. While Lily was mumbling hesitantly, the male adventurer had already charged over with his long sword. Go to hell. The sword struck Yu head-on without mercy, but the sword was easily blocked. What did you say? I didn't understand something. A finger gently touched the blade of the sword. I don't know if it was an illusion or something. As Yu spoke, the young adventurer who was so angry that he almost lost his mind felt a biting chill, and his chaotic brain became clear. A lot. The adventurers watching the excitement all around exclaimed. Although the young man wielding the sword didn't look strong, it was incredible to resist the opponent's attack with one finger. Is this inconspicuous young man a LV2 adventurer? People thought so, while Yu looked at the sluggish adventurer standing in front of him and showed a faint smile. His physical fitness is naturally not strong enough to block other people's slashes with one finger. In fact, Yu's physical fitness is still at the level of ordinary people, maybe just about the same as Lily. But just because his own strength is weak, it doesn't mean that there are things he can't do. Magic is not a pistol held in the hands of children. If used properly, magic can make many impossible things possible. For example, there is a chill on the fingertips, and the speed and strength of the slash directly freeze the opponent in an instant. In this way, in the eyes of ordinary people, it looks like he has caught someone else's attack with one finger. But for Yayu, the actual feeling was that he stretched out his hand, and then the opponent's sword gently fell on his finger. In terms of impact and power, it's just zero. Of course, in the eyes of others, this scene is too chic and handsome. Especially Lily, who was standing behind Yayu, was dumbfounded. Well, now it seems that there are still some problems with control. The adventurer standing in front of Yayu was naturally not frightened, he was just frozen, so that he looked a little ridiculous standing there. Although Yayu had recovered his magic power in a very short period of time, it was still a little slow. Sure enough, the control still needs to be trained. When can I control the power as freely as Reveria, then it will be considered a master. Let's go to the dungeon. Ignoring Lily, who looked silly behind him, Yayu said so softly. After a while, the girl finally reacted and hurriedly followed. By the way, it's best to call a doctor for him, otherwise he will die on my behalf. Yayu, who turned around, said this to the onlookers, and everyone noticed something was wrong with the adventurer, who was maintaining a slashing posture with his sword. He was not frightened, but his whole body was frozen.